week 11 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few tight ends I have as sleeper options this week. The first guy, Daniel Bellinger of the New York Giants. And Daniel Bellinger, he's been a decent tight end the last couple seasons for the Giants last year. And some work he got this year, especially with Darren Waller out a few more weeks minimum with the hamstring injury. So the last two games he started, week 9 at the Raiders, 3 catches, 43 yards. And week 10 at the Cowboys, 2 catches, 34 yards. So Daniel Bellinger, decent route runner, good blocker as well. And he's a 3-down tight end for this New York Giant team. So this week here in the middle of the pack matchup at the Commanders that give up the 17th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. We always say a young quarterback like a Tommy DeVito relies on a security blanket like a tight end and a target in the seam, or even on an out route on the sidelines. I think Daniel Bellinger, once again, he could score that 5 to 8 point fantasy range. If you're in deeper leagues and need a sleeper tight end, available in 99% of leagues. Next tight end, Michael Mayer of the Las Vegas Raiders. So Michael Mayer, first career touchdown last week, and a big part of that game versus the New York Jets. Mawson in the back of the end zone making that great grab. So Michael Mayer, the last few weeks, the numbers really haven't been there with Jimmy Garoppolo out of the lineup. And last week, if he didn't catch that down, he wouldn't have had anything in that game as Mayer. So week 7 at the Bears, 2 catches, 13 yards. Week 8 at Detroit Lions, a catch and 19 yards. Week 9 versus the Giants, 2 catches, 11 yards. And then week 10 versus the Jets, 3 catches, 19 yards. And like I said, that touchdown saved them. This week, a decent matchup on paper at the Dolphins that give up the 7th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. So the way this game script should go, the Dolphins get off to an early 10, 14-point lead, and this Raider team has no choice but to throw the football 30, 35 times, even with the rookie Aiden O'Connell. So right now, Michael Mayer out there in 90% of fantasy leagues. Mayer's been a decent route runner this season and had a couple decent ball games. So right now, if you're in desperation, he's a sleeper option this week. And the third and final tight end I have as a sleeper this week, Tyler Conklin of the New York Jets. Tyler Conklin, I've mentioned him a lot on the waiver wire and is a sleeper option all year. And he's been the number 2 target in the passing game for the Jets behind Garrett Wilson. So Zach Wilson, going back to last season, like Tyler Conklin in this offense. Not every week he's putting up numbers, but the last few weeks here, he's definitely picked things up here as Conklin. Week 9 versus the Chargers, 6 catches, 66 yards. And then last week, week 10 at the Raiders, 7 catches, 70 yards. So he's working the middle of the field. He's got pretty good hands for a tight end. Obviously, yards after catch and speed isn't all that great. But like I said, Tyler Conklin's been under the radar all season, and he's had very serviceable games, with 4 games of double-digit fantasy points on the year. So right now, while he's available still in 84% of fantasy leagues, if you need a tight end that's getting targets and the number 2 option on his team in the passing game, Conklin is the guy. So a few tight ends I have as sleepers for week 11 of the fantasy football season.